Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. I don't believe there is anything as Sharia law or Islamic law because you practically can't have them. You can't have Islamic law. You can't have Sharia law. You can't have it because Quran was given to the Prophet primarily as an inspiration for us to think rationally and to think so that we can have the belief of one God embedded in our hearts. So it was with the purpose of inspiring people to think so that they could believe in the existence of God. The modern understandings of finer details about belief, for example, atheism, deism, apatheism, dualism, and all that were discussed in various ways throughout the Quranic verses by mentioning the stories of various prophets. It is definitely not a book to give you comprehensive guidance for morality as well through various definitions. Quran doesn't define various aspects of behavior when it comes to interactions with other people. For example, it doesn't define what exactly theft means, what exactly rape means, what exactly robbery means, what exactly deception means, what exactly deceit means, fraud means. Quran doesn't define all that because it's not a book of laws. It is not a book to give you detailed guidance about moral issues as well. It's just an inspiration. As long as you believe there is someone watching you, and as long as you believe there is God, and you believe in absolute monotheism, then you will not be able to do anything bad. You won't be able to commit any crime. You won't be able to harm anyone. And you will have no choice but to believe that you have been sent to this planet with the purpose of establishing peace. There are various verses in the Quran where you can't get any moral guidance. They are simply to cast away evil, or simply to, as I said, to give birth in your heart the sense of oneness of God. For example, Surah Quraysh, Surah Fil, the elephant. Then you have Surah Nas, or you have Surah Ikhlas, or Surah Lahab. You can hardly find any moral guidances there, apart from the fact that Allah is emphasizing on His oneness, on His supremacy, and to seek help from Him to cast away evil and all that. Then why do we see this demand from extremists to establish Sharia law? That is simply because the persona hadiths created about Prophet Muhammad goes totally against the persona we have from reading Quran. Quran, for example, says in Surah 88 verse 22 to 24 that Prophet Muhammad was not their controller, their ruler. But in hadiths we have examples wherefrom we can sense that probably he was a king, he was a ruler, he wanted to have control of this world, and he wanted to establish by force his ideologies. Why so? Because the so-called caliphs wanted to have greater and bigger control of the mass so that they could stare them. They could be stared against the people who call themselves Christians or Jews or even Hindus. So this goes totally against Quran, because Quran doesn't tell you that. This persona was simply created with the purpose of giving some divine sanctions behind their jihadi activities. Whereas Quran is not even a constitution to run a state, because the concept of a statehood was not even born during the era of the Prophet. There is no way to prove that Prophet even actively participated at any battle, because Quran doesn't have a single verse where it says that Prophet took active part in a battlefield and was brandishing sword. Rather, he appears to be a very docile man, very shy man, from various verses of the Quran, who couldn't even tell of his own wives, he couldn't even tell of his own followers. He was very kind to them. Surah 3 verse 159, Surah 48, Surah 49 and Surah 33, read all that. He was a very shy man. So this is a problem, because Quran doesn't define even what alim means exactly, because it seems they are contradicting in places. There are concepts like qawm or nationhood. Still that is not clear whether it's a race, it's ethnicity, ethnic group, what is it? So Quran is not clear about those terms. There are many hapax legomenon, that means there are many words which were used only once in the Quran, and those words are totally obsolete now. You can't really even understand what those words really meant. So to rely on examples of some examples of punishments in which were ordained in Quran, we have difficulty in understanding under what circumstances they were to be judged, because, as I said, we don't have definitions of many things in the Quran. Simply, Quran doesn't define, as I said, important aspects of running a state or punishing some people. That's why, even if you go to hadiths, you won't find definitions of those terms. You will find examples. For example, you will find some examples of punishments which were inflicted, but they appear to be going against the Quran. They appear to be coherent with the Bible or the Torah. They don't appear to be coherent with Quran. For example, the punishment by stoning. And even then, the question comes whether that punishment was carried out before the Quranic punishments for adultery. In some places, the punishment would be stoning, in lashing. And in other places, the punishment would be to confining someone or locking up someone for committing adultery. And in some places, you will see there are provisions of even forgiving them totally if they had repented. The same goes for other qisas punishments, for example, killing someone and all that. So, if you don't have definition of substantive laws, for example, in Indian subcontinent, we have penal code. The British enacted the penal code, where various crimes are defined. What is rape? What is robbery? What is dacoity? What is, adultery? What is lewd activity? What is, for example, the punishment of or murder, when really murder takes place? The same goes for British laws. English laws define crime, certain crimes, when it is committed. There are provisos, exceptions and all that in the legislations. And again, you have procedural law. For example, in Indian subcontinent, you have criminal procedure code. There are many procedural laws. In the hadiths, you have examples of certain punishments, but you don't have a coherent understanding of certain definitions. There is no universally accepted definition of murder according to Quran. There is no universally accepted definition of rape in Islam. You don't have it. So what Muslim scholars are finding difficult, they will not admit it, but what they are finding difficult is to comprehend what Allah really meant by rape, what Allah really meant by adulterous activity, and in that pursuit they will try to rely on wordings, different variant use of various wordings in Quran and Hadith, and try to reach an agreement. Even there they will fail immensely. They have jurisprudences like ijma, qiyas, individual effort, united decision. Even there they can't unite. There are many scholars like Ibn Hazm who didn't even accept ijma. So there is another problem we have here. It is obvious because there is no definition of various substantive legal issues in Quran. Quran is not a constitution to run a country. It is not. It can't be, because in a constitution you don't expect to have certain punishments of certain crimes written, but you have that in Quran. On the other hand, Quran is an inspiration to make you strong at times of problem, so that you don't feel alone, you don't lose your resolve, you don't lose your patience, you don't lose hope. So it's an inspiration, book of inspiration, to inspire you to raise your morals, and also to inspire you to remain strong in your faith. So it's a book of inspiration. That's all. There's nothing more to it. Because even the Bukhari hadith number 4981, Prophet is saying, I've been given an inspiration. Christians now believe that Europe is run by Christian values. So Muslim world should find a way to unite, to believe in Islamic values. And if you really be honest and look into the 10 commandments and other aspects and residues of that in Quran, you will see more or less they're the same in the Quran. There are differences, of course, subtle differences, but more or less they're the same. And this applies for all religions. So this proves that we should run the world with human values where we are all united. We can differ at the core when it comes to monotheism, monolithism, epitheism, atheism and all that. But at the same time, I think we all can unite on moral values. There are problems in hadiths when it comes to trying to enact Islamic laws, because we don't have enough examples. For example, when we have substantive law in a country, we have procedural law, then we have a court decision, the judge gives a decision, and then you have ratio decidendi and the reasoning behind the decision, then you have precedents set. Then obviously judges of the future can rely on those precedents to reach a decision. Then you have the parliament, where laws are promulgated, amended time to time, because laws must be amended, made up to date, because the society keeps on changing, time keeps on going forward. To understand under what circumstances those certain decisions, which are not ample enough for us to enact Islamic laws, we find we are at lost. We are totally lost. We are at a loss, and we are totally lost, because, for example, theft is a sin. Okay, every crime is a sin, but there are crimes which are only to do with between a human and Allah. For example, living a faith. What's the purpose of making it a crime for this world? There's no reasoning behind it. And again, if you stole something from someone and you punished him, why should God punish him again? You get into these confusions in trying to make divine law into legislation. You can't really legislate all morality anyway. So if you really want to know what the law exactly is, you have to have enough examples when you should be able to say, well, he was punished with 10 years imprisonment in certain circumstances. Here's the ratio decidendi of the decision. Then you will have somebody given, say, community work for stealing something as the first time offender. So you need to have many examples, many precedents to understand the gravity of the crime, so that you can't really just say, for example, it's theft, do away with his hand, chop his hand off. Because There's not a single example, say during the Prophet's lifetime, that anybody was chopped off of his hand. But at the same time, there are examples even now in Saudi Arabia being done. But even there, the scholars would say, oh, well, this much of crime, should not really be punished with chopping your hand off. So when Quran says chop the hand off, then the question comes, how grave was the punishment? How grave was the crime? How grave was this theft? Can we ever do away with the hand? Can we ever chop off the hand because of theft? What really happened there? Do we have a detailed lecture of the Prophet? We don't. We are in Hadith, what we have, like interactions between Prophet and certain people. But Prophet was delivering lectures in the mosque, apparently, and he was giving decisions, fatwas, after discussing with his followers, like Surah 3 verse 159 says. So he was discussing with the people of his time, then he was giving decision and relying on God. The same thing should be done today, because we don't have detailed lecture of the Prophet. We don't have it, although allegedly he had over 100,000 followers before he died. But at the same time, we don't have a detailed record of his lectures regarding variant Quranic provisions, regarding various crimes and variant punishments. We don't have them. We don't have examples for every variant decisions. We don't have definitions of substantive laws. So, in fact, you don't have anything as Sharia law. You can't have Sharia law, because Quran didn't have that purpose. Even Quran says that Allah made it haram for people of Torah not to eat animal fat and animals with hoofed legs and all that. But it is not so for people of who follow Quran. They should be following their book, and there are guidance in Torah. They should follow it. There are guidances in Injil or Gospel. They should follow it, and there are guidances in Quran. The term used in all these cases is Hudan. Surah 5 verse 44, Surah 5 verse 47, Surah 2 verse 2. Read all that. They are all in present tense. And Quran says that if you believe in one God, you don't have anything to worry. And hereafter, you don't have anything to worry. Even if you're a Christian Jew, Surah 2 verse 62. And it doesn't say anywhere the Christians and Jews will go to hell if they don't believe in the Prophet Muhammad. And also Surah 2 verse 111, it says that the Jews and Christians, they say they are the only ways, and if we believe in Prophet Muhammad, we will burn in hell. And we don't say that, but they say it. We don't say it. We just want them to agree on one thing, baina wa bainakum, and then we are saying hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin, that if you are true teller, then show us the evidence. We are saying the main purpose of all the prophets, Surah 3 verse 144, that prophets will come. Prophets came, prophet gone, prophets gone. So all of them had one single purpose, oneness of God. And Allah has no pleasure in punishing you, apart from the fact that He wants you to be grateful. Surah 4 verse 147, and Allah will return the favor to you. So this is what it is. If you believe in one God, look for your innate morality, because it's embedded in all soul. Try to hang out with good people, and then have your chosen leaders to promulgate laws by remembering the basic principles. Love thy neighbor, be kind to your parents, and all that. You will find it in all the scriptures. The main purpose is just believe in one God. If you have that fear and love for God, you will promulgate good laws. But it is totally impracticable, because trying to find the definitions of substantive law and calling it Quranic law, when you're trying to do that basing on sporadic examples from hadith, even those examples are not much reliable, because the narrators are questionable. Hadiths were written more than 300 years after Prophet Muhammad. You can't find a single copy of Bukhari until the 12th century. And the narrators were really questionable most of the times, because there were 7th, 8th categories of Sahabas or companions of the Prophet. They were written hundreds of years after the Prophet. These are all questionable things. So to expect to enact Sharia law, Islamic law, on the basis of Quran and Hadith, practically impossible, absurd. That's why the whole world, all the Muslims throughout history could never agree on anything when it comes to Islamic law. They couldn't agree on anything. They can't do it. And you can say some family laws. Even there's a question. What was the society like? How women were being treated. What were the economic circumstances of the society? We can't even really decipher that. And if that was the purpose of Allah, He would have given laws for everything straightforward with ordering the Prophet to implement those variant decisions of Allah. We don't have it. So the main purpose of Quran was to call people in common terms, that is, believe in one God, fear God, wake up your morality inside you, love people, be kind to them, because God is kind to you as well. Be grateful. You can't enact Islamic law. You can't do it. You don't have enough resources. You simply don't have enough resources. You are trying to go to substantive law from fragmented examples. We don't have enough information either. We don't have Prophet's lectures. We don't have too many examples for everything. We don't have it. We simply don't have it. We can't do it. The bottom line is we can't do it.